Hello and welcome to another episode of the Vulnerable Podcast. I am your host, Anastasia Gabrielle Flores, and today I'm interviewing Emily Vassallo. She's 21 from Sydney, Australia, and she recently came out with an ebook titled Level Up Your Self-Love, which I feel is just really relevant, especially right now in quarantine. I feel like we have so much more time to just overthink everything, overanalyze, and just be on our phones. So I really wanted her to share her journey of how she came about writing about this book and her self-love journey and just tips and advice and all of that good stuff. So yeah,
pretty much like my ebook, I guess, if you want me to start talking about that first. I wrote my ebook last year and released it last year. So I don't know, just something about writing an ebook. It was just in the back of my head, just something I knew I wanted to do, for myself and for obviously the community I was building.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the one thing that I felt really strongly about and very passionate about was self-love. And I was like, well, I'm going to write an ebook around, self-love. And I remember saying to myself, the how, and it's the how just kind of blocked me and stopped me for so long. So I was like, oh, how do I do this? Oh yeah, I want to know how to do this, but how do I do this? And I feel like that's just something that I just kind of let get in my way. But then I don't know what it was. I think I just kind of stopped overthinking it, and it's the desire to actually want to help people and put something out there really allowed the creativity to flow, and I ended up creating it, I think maybe within a couple of months, maybe 3 to 4 months.
Yeah.
And I would just pretty much work on it whenever I had, free time between work and all of that, other stuff I was doing. So it was kind of just my little my hobby at the time. But I guess I kind of undervalued how much it would help people, how much, value was kind of in it. So I've created an ebook, and it's called Level Up Your Self-Love. And just I kind of love the whole thing about leveling up your life, and that song Level Up by Kiara is probably my theme song, because I love the whole idea of you can do self-love, but it's I feel so many people as well look at it and say, how do you even do that? So I've pretty much broken down in the ebook, I've broken down self-love into I think about 4 different pillars or chapters, and for me it all pretty much stems around and covers unleashing your vulnerability. I feel vulnerability is a really big and important aspect of self-love that not a lot of people shine a light on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's connecting to that inner and deeper part of yourself, and really allowing yourself to be seen by others and heard, and just becoming really vulnerable. Being vulnerable doesn't make you weak. And I've got a beautiful quote in there as well by Brene Brown. I remember watching this beautiful documentary that she did last year, and I, straight away, my whole perspective on vulnerability and courage and all of that just really expanded. And I was like, wow, this is so beautiful. So I drew on that inspiration as well. And I drew on a lot of, different people that I've looked up to and that have really inspired me. And I take their quotes, and I pretty much use them and apply them into the ebook as well. And you'll get to see that if you choose to read it. So unleashing your vulnerability is one of them, and then of course shining your light is the second chapter, because again, that's what my brand is all about. That's what message is all about: shining your light on who you are and not hiding, that deeper part of yourself. And especially, I guess, again, drawing on my personal experience, I remember, constantly comparing myself and to people around me, to other girls, people I saw on social media, and just, I guess, eventually just hiding, the part of myself rather than letting myself shine brightly. So that obviously, is a really big part as well of shining a light. And then the last 2 chapters talk about loving your mind, which obviously delves into your self-talk, so your positive versus negative self-talk, and just really like observing the way you choose to think and the things you choose to say about yourself is really important, because obviously, for example, like if we were together and we were talking, like I wouldn't dare say to you a negative, compliment or a bad thing about you, but it's so easy for us to do that with, with ourselves, and like our unconscious mind is just like constantly spitting out negative things about ourselves, when we're in that state of mind and we don't even realize that. So now I've kind of drawn up the tools, like, I call it, like, as Melissa Ambrosini says, your inner mean girl. And I loved reading that book so much because, again, it kind of like sparked that light about, wow, like we all have this, inner critic or this inner mean girl or mean boy who pretty much is stemmed from our ego and wants to tear us down and does, wants to keep us stuck. It doesn't want us to grow. But then learning to observe that and learning to just say thank you, and like you can like leave now, like you're not one, to acknowledge that part of you and just to say thank you and then let it go is like, there's just so much. Like, it feels like such a simple thing, but it honestly
really
is so much. It's so much power behind it. Like when you actually navigate that skill, it's so powerful because it's like you have actually won. You've won over those inner mean, thoughts or statements that you've been saying and believing about yourself, and then rewriting your story. So that chapter really kind of delves into that a little bit, and I just talk about, I give some like self-love exercises as well, and just some things that people can actually do, so they're not just reading something but they also are learning how to apply it straight away, because I feel like integration obviously is the biggest thing. And the last chapter talks about loving your body, so feeding it, like nourishing your not just nourishing your mind and your spirit, but also nourishing your body and loving your body. Like body image for me, I break that down as well in the chapter into 2 different parts, but body image for me is another thing that, from personal experience, I really empathize with a lot of women, knowing how they feel, knowing, what we go through as women, especially when it comes to that topic. And again, like, seeing how the link between your mind and your body is so strong, because again, when I had drawing on my own experience, when I had a negative obviously mindset about myself and I wasn't complimenting myself, I wasn't able to receive compliments, I wasn't, I didn't feel good about myself, and then obviously that internally turned into a physical thing of like, I didn't feel good, or when I looked in the mirror I didn't like what I saw, I didn't have that confidence. So that all pretty much it plays on each other really in a really big way. So that's pretty much the last chapter where I talk about body image and learning to confidently own who you are, own your body, own your light, own your magic and your beauty, because literally like body, you're owning your outer beauty is important too, but it's also about owning your inner beauty as well. Like there's so much more than what's just on the outside.
Right.
And so like that's pretty much what my first ebook talks about and delves into, and just pretty much shining that light onto all these different key aspects that make up, I guess, the core of what self-love really is, and what I feel it really means as well for me, and hopefully inspiring a lot of other women around the world, and just to kind of look into that a little bit deeper to act as that guide for them.
Yes, that's so exciting. I'm so excited to actually read it.
Thank you.
How do you think your journey to self-love began?
Well, for me, I mean, I started my self-development, like personal growth journey when I was about like 15, 16. And so it's like at that time, when other people around me my age were like, obviously talking about like boys and like all this other like, all this other stuff, like I didn't really care too much about that. Obviously I was on my own journey, and I pretty much looked at it as a way of just wanting to like invest in myself, and I had that positive influence around me as well, with like my mum and other people I was already like following or looking up to, but my real self-love journey like actually didn't really spark until I was probably around 17, 18, and there's a blog post I wrote, and I published as well on my blog, and from like at the end of like 2017, so I think December 2017, when I was reflecting on like my year, and I literally said in that specific post that self-love saved me in 2017 because of everything. Like that was the year I really dived deep like head first into what it meant,
right.
and how I needed to really just apply it for myself, because my self-worth was low, my self-esteem was low, my self-confidence, like my body image, you know, that's when that all started as well for me. And so the relationship with myself really just kind of did a 180 pretty much, because I knew that, yeah, self-love was that thing that, you know, saved me at the end of the day, by investing in myself, working on myself, and just learning to accept myself as well. Like, that was such a big challenge for me, especially that year when I guess I'd first started not just learning about it in a deeper way, but also applying it. Like, this is why, again, in my ebook I talk about, it's not just obviously about learning about something, but knowing how to apply it for yourself. And it's going to look and feel different for everyone. Like, everyone's on their own journey when it comes to self-love, but I feel like the key thing that everyone shares in common is, like I said, like, it's like when you start, it's going to feel uncomfortable, but like that's part of your growth, and just like accepting and honoring that is so important. So I definitely, I obviously didn't start this journey on my own. I had a lot of, you know, like I said, I had support from my mum, I had support from a few friends around me at the time, and I had support. I invested in a life coach as well. So that definitely, gave me, especially the tools I guess I needed just to find that place of like, okay, like this is where I'm going to start. But eventually, I kind of got to that place, like I said, at the end of, I guess 2017, where I was able to just look at the whole year and feel really proud of where I'd come, I guess, from the start of my journey. And even now, like looking, I guess that was like 3 years ago. So even looking now at like how much further I have come along in my journey with self-love, it's like, it's a thing that's constantly evolving and growing with you. And even just knowing that is really rewarding in itself, to know that every year you're just going to get stronger, and you're going to know more about yourself, and you're going to grow with yourself, you know, because you're pretty much, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's about becoming your best friend, because you're the one person that you live with for the rest of your life, you know.
Yes, that is so true.
It's like, you don't want to live your life, you know, for the rest of your life, like living in war with yourself. You'd rather be in peace and harmony with yourself.
Exactly. And I guess like when you're going through it, it can seem so hard and so like out of the ordinary to, you know, start small practices or changes in your daily routine. But it's like once you get over that hump, it's like, it's more, I guess, clear, you know, because now when I'm even reflecting,
Well, even for me, like even like reflecting on, you know, the first time I did mirror work, for example, because that's something as well that, you know, I definitely had to go through, and obviously with my body image struggles and self-love and coming to that self-acceptance, that place of, you know, accepting myself, that was definitely super confronting and super difficult and challenging and overwhelming and emotional as well. And again, this is why I talk about, you know, unleashing a vulnerability, because it's like those different, you know, stages and things you have to go through, like it's gonna feel really hard and it's not gonna be pretty. Like self-love isn't pretty all the time, you know. And I think that's sometimes a mask that we look at on social media. It's like, oh, she loves herself, she accepts herself, like it's really pretty. Like it's not always going to be. And that's just, I think, learning to be okay with that as well, because I like reflect back, like I said, on the first time I did mirror work, and it was super uncomfortable, and then reflecting back on like maybe the 5th time or the 6th time, you know, that I did it last year, and I was like, okay, that was like a lot easier. And then seeing the girl next to me do it, and I was like, oh, she's in a difficult place. That's where I was this time last year, you know. So kind of reflecting on that, and again seeing that we're all in a different, you know, time in our journeys, but like we're all going to get there eventually, you know what I mean? And just honoring that is really, I guess, really special, just to have that moment with yourself and be proud of like, you know, where you are on your journey.
And did you say mirror work?
I did.
I've never heard of that term. I guess for anyone listening.
Let me educate you, Gabby.
Yes.
Let me educate you. Okay, well, I pretty much started like educating myself about mirror work because my mum gave me this beautiful book by Louise Hay. If you don't know her as well, please like rest rest in peace, but like look her up. She is so beautiful. All of her work is just, yeah, it's just like just the way she divinely guides you, whether it's like about, you know, the law of attraction or, you know, just really self-love is, yeah, really beautiful. And so she gave me her book to read about mirror work. And again, this is the first time I'd ever really heard about it as well. And so it's pretty much just about practicing coming, you know, face to face with yourself, like in the mirror. So, and just, you know, really honoring, you know, like looking at your own gaze, honoring your own presence, you know, in the mirror. And I guess, yeah, this is the really vulnerable side of it, because it's not just, you know, again, like self-love isn't just about, you know, taking a pretty selfie and then posting it and being like, yep, I love myself, I look great, you know, but it's also about allowing yourself to be really present with yourself in these moments. And so, I remember the first time, yeah, I guess, again, became really aware that I didn't know, or I felt really uncomfortable doing mirror work, is because I had a friend take me in front of the mirror, and then he said, you know, show me like 3 things that you really like about yourself. And like, I couldn't say anything. I felt so distraught by that, but I just like, I couldn't say anything. And so that's when, yeah, Mum gave me this book and was like, okay, we're gonna, you know, start this journey now to loving and accepting yourself. And it's like, in that moment, it's not about comparing yourself to anyone. It's literally just about seeing you, like gazing in your own eyes. Maybe if you want to say some like beautiful, positive, empowering I am statements to yourself, or even just having like an open and loving conversation with yourself to say, you know, how are you doing, beautiful? I know we've, you know, had a really rough journey, but I'm so proud of you. You know, it's safe, like, to feel loved. It's safe to be vulnerable. Just like having that, whatever it is, like, that you feel like you need to communicate.
Like, you know,
a
daily
yourself.
Mantra.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and now, like, now when I do my mirror work, I mean, it's not like super often, but I know that even if I just have a moment or, you know, a couple of seconds or minutes every day where I kind of just admire and honor my own presence, like I said, like look at your own gaze and just talk in your mind's eye or talk out loud, you know, if you want to, and just kind of, yeah, just honoring your own presence and building that strong and positive and empowering relationship with yourself. Rather than obviously looking at yourself in the mirror and then constantly seeing all these flaws or picking yourself apart and comparing yourself to like every other person that you see on social media or in, you know, in real life. So yeah, that's kind of my, I guess, interpretation of mirror work in a short summary, but I definitely would recommend, yeah, like I said, reading that book. And there's just so many other like beautiful resources and, you know, things that you can like pick up online as well, just to give you a bit more guidance with that as well.
Right. And you mentioned comparison, and I feel like especially during quarantine, I personally have been on my phone like way too much, and have even noticed within myself like comparing and all these different kinds of things. And I guess, like, what advice would you give for maybe anyone trying to, you know, anyone that's not on a good journey right now during quarantine, you know, on their phone more often and that sort of thing? So
I feel like I was the same, like, especially, you know, when I started my quarantine and isolation journey, I definitely was on my phone a lot more, and I noticed just like, not that I was like comparing, but I noticed like the just more use obviously of like my phone and social media especially was just draining my energy. Yeah. And so I feel like for a lot of, people out there, especially if you're someone who's like an empath, or again, like you're just, you know, constantly feeling like you're comparing yourself to everyone else. So I guess the first practical thing I would say is obviously put down your phone, which I know feels so much easier to say than do. But for me, like, I just started to mindfully put in, I guess, time restrictions. So I would just say, okay, I'm going to, first of all, like, I'm not going to look at my phone. And, like, you might obviously be tempted because, again, like, you're making a habit out of it, or, you know, you're trying to build in a new thing that you want to, like, practice and, you know, follow through. But you could make it even, like, a ritual or something. I believe it's all about, like, language. So, again, like, instead of saying, for example, like, isolate or restrict or any like word that doesn't really feel good for you. Just like choose a word that feels good for you, and you're like, okay, this is part of my self-love ritual or practice, and like I'm not going to touch my phone for, let's say, the first 30 minutes or so until I feel like I'm good and I'm primed and I'm in a good headspace. Because I definitely was very guilty of that. Like I'd wake up and the first thing I'd do is go on social media, and then if you're unconsciously comparing yourself to all these people, that's like the way you're starting your day. That's the first thing you're doing and seeing, and you're telling yourself before you even jumped out of bed, like, you're not good enough. Like, how, horrible is that? So, you want to, this is why, like, I know for a lot of people, like, the first thing they might do is, meditate or say gratitude or even do their mirror work in the morning before they even touch their phone, because at least you've established that beautiful connection with yourself first, and you've taken care of yourself before going and tapping into everyone else's energy field, because that's kind of what it is on social media. Like, you're tapping into everyone's energy field, and you're like, okay, she's doing that, she's wearing that, she's cooking that, that's cool, oh, I like that. So it's like you're tapping into all these different things. And that's why it is really easy to absorb all of that energy and want to compare ourselves, because we're telling ourselves essentially in that moment we're not good enough. So I feel like the way to kind of, I guess, limit the need to compare, because like as I say, comparison is a thief of joy, and it is so true. There's not a single time where you'll compare yourself to someone else and you'll feel good about it. You know what I mean? So
right.
I guess, just consciously reminding yourself that you are good enough. Like, you are good enough as you are. You do not need to compare yourself, and that reminding yourself that you are on your own journey. So let's say, like, you're comparing yourself because, you're seeing someone, and they've got like this really good body and they're working out and whatever, and they're still keeping themselves, fit and whatever during quarantine. And then let's say you don't feel as good, or you feel like maybe your fitness or health has been like, decreasing a little, and you're comparing yourself in that manner. All you need to do is like take a moment to just obviously put your phone away, because you don't need to look at that anymore, but just take a moment to either like, close your eyes, put your hand on your heart, or again, this is an opportunity to do mirror work as well, and just remind yourself that you are on your own journey, and that your mental health, like, first and foremost, comes first. So, where you are is only like temporary. So just know that you can take care of your mental health first and find different ways to, connect back to yourself. So, like, know that you don't need to compare yourself to someone else's journey, because you're on your own journey.
Right.
And again, and I guess also, like, the biggest thing we also remember is with social media, it's all a big highlight reel, and like, I'm someone who likes to keep it very real and very authentic on social media, but it's like, even on social media, obviously I'm not going to share every little detail about my life or what I'm feeling in every moment. So it's like, just know that even like, people like me who have a deep understanding and awareness of that, still, I might catch myself and be like, you know what, like, I was just having a human moment, because like, I literally make light of it now, because I'm like, you know what, I brought awareness to it. I've let it go, and I've forgiven myself. And I think that's the biggest thing as well. When you compare yourself, like, learn to forgive yourself afterwards as well, and remind yourself again that you are good enough, because, you got to, like, I guess, repair that, it's like anything, you got to repair the damage, repair the connection back to yourself. And just the more you remind yourself and reassure yourself of something, like, that's why I personally believe I am statements are so powerful, because you're telling yourself, like, for example, I am beautiful, I am strong. Like, if you do that constantly, and repetitively as well, like, you are going to feel so much lighter and stronger and empowered and connected to not just yourself, but like a higher source as well, if that's something you choose to like believe in and follow. So yeah, and then you feel the need to like compare. You'll just learn to appreciate someone else's, beauty or life, or whatever it is you're comparing yourself to. You'll learn to appreciate it rather than compare it.
Right. And I mean, that is true with Instagram. You can't see the behind the scenes. And I think that even for me, that's something that I'm always reminding myself of, And I even wish like anyone looking at my posts could, I wish I could share, everything with them as well, I guess. But I'm just like a private person. So it's just finding that happy medium of like sharing enough of your personal life along with your like photos, you know? But,
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, and when you were talking about everything, I remembered Cardia actually in a video, Cardia Milan had actually talked about like holding her own hand, and just like how during times like that, you just realize that you're not alone and you will always have yourself. And even if it seems kind of silly, it's like that physical thing that you can see and touch. And
yeah, absolutely.
I don't know, I just wanted to bring
even
that
for
up.
myself recently, I've also been introduced, you know, in regards to like, you know, how I hold myself and like having a deeper connection to myself through like havening and through, again, like through, you know, a different way of, you know, doing mirror work or just doing different things exactly as a way to kind of feel like you're holding yourself and to soothe yourself and comfort yourself, and I guess not looking for that external validation in a way, because that's definitely a really deep part of self-love that I've, again, only just kind of learned about and I'm still moving through. So yeah, it's all a process, and it's all, you know, it's not going to happen like obviously overnight, but yeah, I definitely agree with what Cardia said. I think, yeah, that's definitely a really beautiful way to like look at it.
Mm-hmm. And what are, I guess, like if you have a couple or maybe just one, you know, tip or piece of advice for just someone, you know, after listening to this podcast to start implementing like a new self-care regimen into their life or routine?
Well, again, I feel like that's something that can look and feel different. I know for myself, I was putting so many expectations on myself to be like, you should be doing this, and this is how it's meant to look, because that's what I was seeing everyone else on Instagram doing. So again, comparison, you know, and then I kind of came to the conclusion that like, oh, it doesn't actually need to look like that, because it's obviously not feeling good. It's not feeling how it's meant to. So I guess coming back to the feeling of like, okay, what actually makes you feel good? What makes your soul happy or feel at peace and content, and exploring that part of you. And so I guess for me, like, I personally love to, I don't have like a regimen, but I definitely, you know, I'll take a day out of the month and I'll do like, oh, what do I call it? I've gone blank now, but I call it like a mindfulness, me day or something like that. And it's pretty much saying like a whole day dedicated to loving and caring for myself. And again, like I tap into that intuitively, because that will look different every time I go to do it. But, you know, I might decide to like, you know, do yoga for 20 minutes and then, you know, do some breath work and meditation to connect back to like my physical body and my spirit. And then dancing is a really big self-care thing I do as well, because like I'm a dancer, but I love it anyway. It lights my soul on fire. So that's definitely a big thing that I implement every day, regardless of how I'm feeling or what I'm doing. And then writing or journaling as well is a really big self-care thing for me too. And it's just very therapeutic. So obviously, that's one of the reasons I started my blog to begin with, because, you know, when I was like going through my struggles with like, you know, depression and body image and all these different things I was dealing with back then, I used writing as like my therapy in a way, and I just kind of like, you know, it like helped me to release some of the thoughts that I guess I was keeping in my head. So yeah, exactly, that sort of thing I guess with self-care can look different, but kind of like similar to how I said on your story, like on the IG tape. Empowering for your mind, and then find something that's obviously, you know, really good for your soul too, lights your soul on fire or makes it feel, you know, really happy and joyful. And then something as well that's, you know, for your body, you're going to nourish your body with really good foods, and just, you know, finding that way to, every time, like, for example, you go to eat, you're mindful about it and you're grateful for the food you're eating, because like you're giving your body so much love and energy, you know, just kind of like looking at things, I guess, from those perspectives, in those in those ways as well. They're their own forms of self-care and self-love.
Yeah. And I guess if this is too personal, you do not have to answer, but I guess what advice would you give your past self?
Oh, yes. I love this question. I get kind of emotional every time I think about it because definitely not too personal, darling, but I love looking back, I guess, like I said, how far I've come, so that's why I get emotional about it. But I definitely would tell my, I guess, past or younger self, younger Em, that she is enough as she is, so she doesn't need to compare herself to herself look, skinnier or look a certain way or act a certain way, because she is beautiful as she is, and she wasn't born to fit in, so that's why she's so miserable all the time, because she's trying to fit in. You're going to stand out, and other people are going to embrace your magic and your weirdness and your beautiful nature very soon. So just keep believing in yourself, because your time is coming.
I love that. And so where can everyone find your ebook?
They can find my ebook. It's actually linked in my in the bio of my Instagram. So if you go to @ShineInYourLight, you will that's my page. So you can follow me there, and then in the bio you'll find my blog, Shine Your Light, as well as the ebook, Level Up Your Self-Love. So you'll find all of that magic there.
Awesome. And I guess what, besides your book that I'm super excited to read, what other, I guess, recommendations would you give, whether that's books or maybe a YouTube channel or anything out there, I guess, since it's quarantine, for people just to educate themselves on? I learned about mirror work today.
Of course. Well, like I said, so first of all, Mirror Work by Louise L. Hay, definitely really good to look at, because it's one of those integrative books as well. It's a super easy read, but it's one of those books where you read it and you can integrate it obviously as you go along, because that's the point of it. So to give those practical resources as well. And then another one, like I mentioned before, would be Melissa Ambrosini, Mastering Your Mean Girl, because again, that talks a lot about, like I said, the inner mean critics, or thoughts that we have, and then learning how to change them around so that they're empowering and they're thoughts of love and kindness. So that's another really good book I would recommend. And then I guess just in regards to other resources, there are so many people that I follow on social media, Cardia Milan, I'm trying to think now off the top of my head, Melissa Ambrosini, Tony Robbins, Sarah's Day, so many people that I guess cover, Lewis Howes, so many people I follow that just cover so many different aspects, like I said, of self-love, whether it's the physical or the mental or the spiritual, so many different beautiful empowering souls out there. But they're definitely a few that I recommend going to follow. And even if you go on my Instagram and see who I'm following, you'll see the type of beautiful content that I'm absorbing in the energy. So definitely feel free to follow any of those people as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I love chatting to you.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the Vulnerable podcast today. And I'm really excited to read your book.
Thank you. I hope you love it. I'm so excited as well.
Yeah, super amazing. And you guys can find her at Shine Your Light on Instagram. And then her book is just titled Leveling Up Your Self-Love. So, thank you guys so much for listening.